What's up YouTube, it's PB. Thanks for tuning in to another live of a job in Plumber. I've chopped the top of my head off because I wanted to get this t-shirt in because it's so cool. It's from John Snyder Plumbing. Now, if you don't know John, it's probably because you're not on Instagram. Now, if you're not on Instagram and you're a plumber or you want to be a plumber, I highly recommend it because not only can you learn and see work and tools that other people are doing, but you can form great relationships, and there's a massive community. There is a sort of hub for it all called World Plumbers, but there's just a massive community of plumbers all over the world that you can chat to, see their work, become friends with, get in group chats with, ask advice, things like that. And John kindly sent me one of his t-shirts out, which I absolutely love. It says registered master plumber, and there's a load of graphics on the back as well. So yeah, I wanted to get that in. So as I said last time I spoke to you on my last video, this it's kind of an underfloor heating special, but it's only the first sort of third of the video. So if you're used to underfloor heating, if you're sick of the sight of it, skip past all that, and the regular plumbing stuff is still on this month's video. So the underfloor heating, I've never done underfloor heating before until I did it with Jamie, because I've never been asked to do it. I've repaired it, worked on the manifolds, things like that, but I've never actually laid the pipe, never been asked to do it. We've done jobs where it's been laid in the floor ready, things like that, but the work I do, domestic, mainly small houses in the towns and villages where I live, no one's ever asked me to install it. So I wanted to go and learn. Jamie offered me the day, because he was working kind of local to me, the chance to go over, work with him, learn all about it. And what I did there that day, I've filmed most of it. Hopefully I've explained what we were doing, what they were doing okay. And then I've tried to condense it down into a 60-second video of underfloor heating in 60 seconds. And then also I went on a training course with TUF, Trade Underfloor Heating Supplies, TUS I think it is, with Tony Dumble. Did a day's training there, learnt about all the different floor materials, pipes that they use, things like that. So that's the first third of the video, underfloor heating. The rest of it's normal. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoy it, and I'll speak to you again in a bit. So working off a plan, manifolds there, which is there, and then following the diagram, it's all set out ready. The clips are mounted to the floor. Do you call them clips?
Tracking. Clip rail.
That he's called clip rail. Some companies don't use it.
Yeah.
They just freestyle pipe it.
Yeah.
Clip it. But it's just arbitrary set.
So the clip rails attached to the floor, the yellow lines are sort of marked out for the different rooms, stud work and that. And then the next step is to start laying the pipe. Right, so this is a decoiler. So the pipe goes on the decoiler, and this helps you when you're pulling it out, because there's a lot of pipe on some of these runs, like hundreds of meters worth of pipe. Doing it on your own, I think you definitely need one of these. These guys do it in pairs most of the time that they work in pairs. I suppose you could do it without, but it just makes life easier. I don't know what they cost, but what Jamie's doing now is he's checking the plan, because a lot of prep goes into this, so a lot of planning work. Now, what I need to let you know about this pipe is it's already full of water. What they do is they fill it with warm water before they start, which makes it a bit more pliable, a bit more easy. So when he cuts the pipe in a second, you'll see a bit of water come out. So that bit of cardboard there he's written down the lengths of pipe for each circuit, and he's working out what he can take off this coil of pipe. So say he could get 2 rooms or 3 rooms off it. He's working out which of those rooms he can do for the least wastage of pipe, because you can't really use this pipe for much after. I mean, maybe the MLCP you could use some of the offcuts, but really you're not really going to use it for anything. So they try a minimal wastage. So what he's going to do now is starting from the left on this one, and I think we're going to work left to right. I can't remember, it's a while since I did the job. But he's starting with the return. And you'll see there when he cuts it, a bit of water comes out because that pipe's full, like I said. And then it gets a nut, an olive, and then like a pipe insert goes in, and then that pushes into the manifold, and then it gets tightened up. So from the manifold, you start laying the pipe. missing out where the walls are, toilet, into the floor clip channels. So now it looks like I'm not doing any work here, just doing the filming, but after they did this room I cracked on and did some hard work. It was quite enjoyable actually. I can imagine if this was all you did all day, every day, it would get a bit boring, but I found it quite enjoyable for the day. So what they're doing here is they're looping it around 150 apart. I think we did this one. If you go much tighter, where they loop it at the end there, it can kink, but you can do it slightly smaller than 150 if you want to make your runs tighter. And you see that they're popping it into that channel, which makes it really easy, because then after this, while this is down, you can see it's not going anywhere. If you don't have this channeling, then you have to, the other guy has to follow you around with the staple gun, pinning it to the floor, which is what he's doing now, just at the ends to hold it in place. But yeah, this was it was quite fun actually. This staple gun was really cool, although it did keep jamming, but it's got a weight that pushes the staples down, and you just pop them into the floor, and that's sticking into the foam. So there's a layer of insulation foam underneath this black liner, and yeah, you just go along once you've laid it and pin it all in. So that's the ensuite and bedroom done, and then you can see here it comes all the way back and then connects onto the flow of the manifold there. So there we've created a loop, so that's one loop or one zone, and that will have a thermostatic valve now on it, and that will be controlled by a room stat for this room. Right, so we've got all the underfloor piping now, and this is the last one to connect, which basically this goes on to form the 90 bend at the bottom, and then we've got a nut olive with a split there, and then that's the insert for the pipe. So basically this is going to pull down here, cut that and into there. So you can see they've got the pipe insert, the olive and the nut, and then that's just going to push down. It's not really easy with one hand. See, it's gone into there. And then we'll just put the clips in there to hold that in place. So this is the finished pipe we've laid. Things like this yellow line, that'll be a wall. So this one I'm in now will be a room. This one here's a room. And then when you've got things like that, that's the like counter for the kitchen. So there's nothing underneath there because you wouldn't need it. Wardrobe just here. Another wardrobe there. All the way back to the manifold. Now it's finished, they pump it up and pressure test it at 5 bar, make sure there's nothing leaking, because it's really important that the floor doesn't go down until we know it's perfect. If there was any kind of leak on this and you laid the floor, then you'd have to basically dig the floor up. So it's really important to test that everything's sound. So yeah, that's sat at 5 bar now. I'll leave that for I don't know how long, about an hour or so. So this is the finished floor. It's been screeded. It's got underfloor heat pipes under here, and we use the thermal imaging camera. Just hold it up close, so you can see there the pipe work under the floor. And in this kitchen, the finished tiled surface, you can see there where the pipework comes up, just within the 100mm from the kitchen island. So this one here mirrors the one we've just done upstairs. So like you've seen, there's the manifold, and then they come this way. So this is to give you an idea. So we've got the room here. I think that's where we missed out for the wardrobe. Bathroom here. Missed out for the toilet there. That's the shower tray, I think. Small room there, and then through. Wardrobe is again where we missed out in this sort of alcove, and then this is the big kitchen. And then we missed out for the kitchen there. So yeah, this is the finished one. So all the pipes under the floor, all back to that manifold there. What's up guys, going to try and explain underfloor heating in 60 seconds. So this is our underfloor heating manifold, and it's connected to the primary flow and return from the system. It's controlled in the same way as your heating and hot water by a programmer and thermostats for each room. So if we look at this, for example, this loop does the kitchen. So that's one continuous pipe around the kitchen. When the kitchen thermostat calls for heat, this actuator valve opens. When that's fully opened, it sends a switch live to a 2-port valve in the airing cupboard, which opens to allow the heat down from the system, and the pump comes on to pump it around the underfloor heating. The heating water temperature is a lot higher than the underfloor heating temperature required, so it goes through a blending valve. The way that reduces the temperature is it takes some of the cold water coming back from under the floor and mixes it together. The top of the manifold is the flow, and each loop has a flow meter, and you can use that to balance the system by adjusting the flow through each loop, because some loops have a larger surface area, more pipework than others. So we're using this FLIR thermal imaging camera to commission this underfloor heating system. Got a little tip for you. It's especially true for those of you that shine your copper pipes. When you're taking temperature readings on copper using a thermal imaging camera, it doesn't really like looking at the bare copper. So you can see there we've got 34, 35 degrees on that copper. Now what we've done here is put some electrical tape on that same pipe, and if we look at the camera through onto the electrical tape, you get a much clearer reading, and that's now reading 69 degrees. So it's something to do with the reflection of the material you're looking at. If you put some tape over it, you can get a much more accurate reading. Right, so I've come today for some underfloor heating training with Trade Underfloor Supplies at Burton-on-Trent. They're thinking of doing events up and down the country, so if you want to come on one, it's free. If you want to know anything about underfloor heating, they go through system design, installation techniques. You look at the kind of fittings used, the pipes, the different floor structures. So you pretty much learn everything to do with underfloor heating. It takes about 3/4 of a day. And as I say, this one's at Burton-on-Trent, but they are going to be holding them up and down the country. So if you contact TUS, they'll be able to get you in touch with your nearest training course. So what we're going to do now is talk to Ian from Ameti about the different floors, the different pipes and the different fittings used in underfloor heating. Right, so this is Ian from Ameti and Mike from TUS. So Ian's going to talk about the pipes that you would use on an underfloor heating system.
Okay, so two options really. First one being what we call an output pipe, which is made up of plastic internal, aluminium centre and a plastic outer. Okay, benefits of which are it is formable, so you can form a bend and it will stay there. You can reform it if need be. Second option being either a plain PEX or a PERT barrier pipe. Okay, no aluminium core in this, so it is literally almost spring-loaded, so it's quite easy to form, but however it will lose its shape if you don't apply a fixing in it and move on.
It's quite thick, this one, isn't it?
So both tend to be around the same size, so 16x2 is the generic underfloor size.
And they're both 16mm. And, well, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but you do 12mm as well?
You would have a 12mm, yes,
for some certain...
For a low-profile solution.
Okay. So these are the three examples of the most common that would be used.
Yeah, three of the most common floor systems or constructions that we tend to quote and supply to customers. So typically the most common one will be a screed floor system. So usually in new builds you'll have build-up of insulation with pipework clipped to it and a screen poured on top before the final floor finish.
So this is the concrete, or well, the base of the property.
Yeah, just mock up, obviously showing the subfloor there
Yeah.
before the layer of insulation on top
So
of
that's
that.
the first thing you put down is insulation, then there's a layer of black
DPM would go on there usually. And
then
the
your pipe.
pipe is clipped into there, and then the screed will be poured or laid on top.
So this is the screed that goes over the top, then your finished floor goes on the top of that.
Correct.
So the thickness,
Thickness of the screed, from top to bottom,
Yeah.
it can vary. It depends on the amount of insulation that is specified. Typically, you might find it somewhere like sort of 100 mil insulation, 50 mil of screed,
yeah.
but that can change.
So this is only really for new builds because you couldn't add that onto an existing floor.
Yeah, the overall sort of build up from the subfloor can be around 150 mil, so it's
Yeah.
not really suitable for sort of retrofitting, which is
Okay.
why we look at then systems such as this one, which is what we call an overfloor system. So if you imagine this is showing the subfloor there, what we're doing is putting a 18 mil gypsum type board on top of the floor, which is really only raising the floor by a couple of centimetres there.
Yeah.
So this is using a 12 mil pipe within the panel, but still giving great outputs. Not quite as strong as the screed floor, obviously, but still really good in terms of the output and the performance. And then we'd probably put a 6 mil levelling compound over the top of that as well.
And then the floor. So
Yeah.
the total on that thickness,
So really, on top of the floor, you'd be looking at probably sort of with your floor covering, possibly around sort of 30 mil.
30 mil. So that's an option for retrofitting into existing properties.
Perfect for renovations, first floors as well, or any areas where the sort of height is an issue, the build-up height is an issue.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is where we're looking at sort of timber joist floor structure. Again, there are a few different options available in terms of timber joist. This is a typical one that we will look at, which is what we call a spreader plate system. So basically, you've got insulation between the joists. Then we've got an aluminium tray or plate which is clipped to the joist. The pipe sits within the plate, and then the flooring goes on top.
So that's your standard chipboard,
Yeah,
and then you finish flooring.
correct. Yeah.
And
Well,
then-
as with all of these, there are sort of variations of each, but typically these are the sort of three main
Yeah.
floor types that we will look at.
And then just talk through quickly about the finished floor. You can have tiles, which is the best thing to use with underfloor heating.
Yeah, tile's the best conductor. Laminate floor, wooden floors probably after that, and carpet probably third. Carpet's absolutely fine, despite what a lot of people think. Just depends on the TOG rating. Don't exceed 2.5 TOGs,
Yeah.
and you might need to sort of tweak the flow on that particular
Is the
area.
carpet, as opposed to, so in my head now I'm thinking tile, really compact, close together, whereas carpet's spread out, so there's a lot more air in that. Is that the reason why the heat doesn't transfer through it?
Carpet's just a thicker material. It just doesn't conduct the heat quite so well through it,
Yeah.
whereas natural stone tile, porcelain tiles just sort of conduct the heat really well. Obviously, you can feel that on the feet as well, much better. But there's no reason that you can't have any type of floor covering. You just need to kind of consider the setup of each individually.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Cheers.
So this is a kitchen mixer tap that's loose. This will be one of the most common jobs you get called to. And the reason is because they're swivel heads, so it's designed so that the tap head swivels like that. And as this gets stiff in here, this is on an O-ring, it gets harder to turn. So when they turn it, it starts moving the tap, then it undoes the mechanism. Let me turn the flash on. The fixing under there. But the issue on this one is, I don't know if you can see that, let's try and zoom in. They've got the washer and metal plate directly onto the metal of the sink. Now this sink is only about 2 mil thin where the tap's on, so there's nothing for that fixing kit to grab onto, so we need to space it out with some kind of packer so it's got a bit more, something a bit more substantial underneath it. So I'm going to whip that out. I'm going to use this to hopefully, because there's a lot of pipe work there you can see, I've got to get in. So I've got the Tapex kit with the extension pole, and then one of these sockets. I must have dropped this because all the bits have come out. Now one more little tip. Oh, I'm not even give you a tip yet. So we can see I've got two ISO valves there, but I've also got the stop tab, and we're on a combi, so I'm going to turn this off because I'm going to have less problems doing that than if I try and turn them off, because they'll probably either weep or something will go wrong. So if you can, it's easy enough. I don't tend to use the ISO valves. So whip the tap out and then remake it in with probably, the only thing I've got on the van is this top hat, so I'll see if I can fit that in. So you can see there, I've took the tap out, and the only thing that's holding it in underneath is this. And it only doesn't do that area there, so you can get it over your tap flexors. But if you imagine that pulled up tight against this, which is super thin, you know, less than 2mm thick, it is going to wobble and move. So we're going to pack it out, hopefully fit that on, and then that will pulling against that. It just gives you a bit more surface area, makes it a bit more substantial, and that should look after the tap. Didn't use the extension, just use that piece and then the ratchet to get it out quite easy. What size was that? 12mm, I think. So we'll put that back together now. Now what we can also do before we tighten it up fully is spin it round, because there's always a grub screw, and it's normally always at the back because you don't want to see it. When we've undone that grub screw, the actual spout should pull out. And what we can do is we can put some silicone grease on these two O-rings, which will help it to spin round freer, so it won't disturb the tap again. Careful that you don't lose that down a plug hole with the top tip. So this here you can see, so I've got my ratchet with the mini extension in, and then I can just do it like that, makes it a lot easier. And hopefully should have a nice secure tap now, which we can spin without the tap moving. So I've just got to connect the tails back on and then turn the water back on. So, job done. We've got a fixed tap which we can now spin freely because we've greased it. And we've not got to worry about these leaking because we didn't touch them. And we use the stop tap. Job done. What's up guys, this is a single feed indirect cylinder, also known as a primatic cylinder. Took it off a job last week, cut a hole in the side so you can see what's going on the inside. I'm going to try and explain basic terms how it works. So single feed, because it's only got one tank feeding the hot water and the heating system. The water comes down from the tank here and starts to fill up from the bottom. The design of this vessel here allows water to go in, and any air gets trapped in the top there and creates an airlock, and it's that airlock that separates the water in our primary system that goes to our boiler and our radiators from the secondary system, the water that goes to our taps. When the boiler starts to heat the primary coil, any air and gases that collect go out of this vent pipe and into the secondary water and then out through the expansion and vent pipe as normal. When this heats up, the air bubble in here is compressed, and for that reason you can't put too many radiators on the system, because if you had a lot of water in the system it would compress that air too much and you would lose your air bubble. If you did lose your air bubble, the water in your heating system, which would be dirty and corroded, would mix with the clean water and you'd get brown water coming out of your hot taps. For that reason you can't have this pumped, it has to be gravity. The pump would lose your air bubble and pump over the vent. You can't power flush this system, and you can't add inhibitor, because if you had inhibitor in your heating system and you did for whatever reason lose your air brake, the inhibitor would get into the water that we're using to bath and wash your face. If you did lose your air brake, the only way to fix it is to drain the whole system down and refill it again and try and prime the air bubble. Another downside is you can't tap in a hot shower supply to a pumped shower, because that would disturb the air gap. The main benefit to it really is only having one tank to feed it and the associated pipework with that tank. So this is a fire I attended for a part of a landlord gas safety that the tenants were still using, even though you can see there that glass is almost completely black. So it's got incomplete combustion. Don't know why, I've not investigated it. All I've done is turned it off and told the tenant it's not safe to use, and you can see it's building up the black coating. It's even falling down onto the coals. So we've got quite a big problem here. So I've classified this as immediately dangerous. It's not safe for them to use, and I've advised the landlord that what that means is I've capped it off, written a warning notice and advised them they can't use it with their permission. And then I've quoted to take this off, service it properly, and I've said to them there might be an issue as to why it's got like this, or it might just need a good service. The little job I did yesterday, Saturday job, because I couldn't fit it in the week. Chap's got no hot water. So this is a 4-tick cylinder. I'm just going to show you a little tip, because I'm in a block of flats and I'm on the 2nd floor. So to get a hose that will reach down to outside would be quite tricky. So what I've done is I've cut a section of the overflow pipe out, and then I'm running my hose into the overflow, so that'll be discharging safely wherever that overflow terminates. Obviously check that it does terminate and it's going to come out and it's, you know, not fell apart somewhere, because you'll just flood the flat below. But that's a little tip if you can use it. So for those of you that don't know what a 4-tick cylinder is or how it works, the tank's at the top there, your cold mains comes in and that tank fills up. The cold feed then goes down and feeds into the bottom of your cylinder as it would do on a standard one, and then when that's full it comes out of that pipe there. When it's heated, that'll be your hot water supply. The vent's internal, so that goes up and then discharges over the top of that tank. So if your immersion, say, got stuck and the water boiled, it could vent to atmosphere and then it would go out the overflow. You'll mainly find these in flats, and the reason they're installed as flats is because you've not got a tank in the roof space, because you've not got a roof space. The thing above you is the next flat. And the downside to these is that tank there that's on top of the cylinder, because it's right on top of the cylinder, you've got no head. So the water that's pushing down to come out of your tap, if you follow the level of my hand, it's not very much higher than your tap there. And if you imagine a shower being up on the wall even higher, it won't work very well with a shower. You won't have any pressure, any flow rates coming out of your tap or shower. What's up guys, just a little tip for you in case you didn't know. If you're soldering a joint that's really close to something flammable and you want to do it in situ, because copper's such a great conductor of heat, you can heat the pipe further down away from your fitting, and the heat will quickly travel up and you'll be able to solder your fitting as normal without worrying about your flame burning the thing that you don't want to burn. Obviously you can use a heat mat or heat blocking compound, or just take the pipe out of situ, but I just thought it was a decent little bit of knowledge to have in your arsenal in case you came across a certain circumstance where it might help you out. And if you didn't know, now you know. So I got this new tripod from Stabila for my laser level. I was using a pole, which was fine, but when you need to move it around a lot, it's a bit of a faff to take the pole down. This, you've got a carry handle on here, so you can just carry it around the job. The stand itself's got loads of features on it. There's a little level bubble there so you can set it up. And then you've got things like, you can move it left to right pretty easily if you need to do that. You can use this handle, which is awesome, for changing the level up and down slightly. And you can tighten it in place if you need to lock it in. It's got 2 different extension options here, so it will extend fully to 5 foot, and then the minimum height is about 2 foot tall, and it comes with a nice little storage bag. I know I've covered this before, but for those of you that don't know, if you've got a sound like this, see how that's vibrating? It's the washer in there. Just that washer vibrating. So we're going to take that apart and put a new washer in. So what I've done is unscrewed that off there and took the washer out. That sits down. You can see there it's quite stretched. It's not the right shape either. So that's the issue. I've got my trusty box of toilet spares here. So that's a standard one. You can see the difference in thickness. See how flat that one is compared to that one. And then that just drops on there. And then this screws back on. These are one of the worst. No, they're not one of the worst ones. Ideal Standard do a bad one. But this is really hard to get off sometimes. And also this that diverts the water down. At the minute if we turn the water back on, it would shoot up out of there. That just clips on. Now if you've got 3 bar pressure or more, I don't trust that, just clipping on. But so that's the new washer on. Turn the water back on now. You can see the vibrating noise is gone. Now this is the kind of job I get called out to all the time, and you probably will too. Concealed cisterns that are leaking. Now there's 2 or 3 reasons why they'll do this. Number one, the pan's not been fixed properly to the floor, so the pan will wobble when someone sits on it, and that flush pipe will work its way loose. The second option is that they've not installed the cistern correctly, and they'll fix it at the top, but there'll be a gap behind it at the bottom, allowing the cistern to move backwards and forwards. Again, when it's flushing, when it's being used, it'll just work its way loose. But the main culprit will be they cut the flush pipe too short. You see that so many times. So all I've done on this is quoted them to come and refit this properly with a new flush pipe that's long enough. But yeah, you'll see this one quite a lot. This isn't plumbing related, but it's just something I saw on a job and had to share with you. So being a plumber's a great job, being a jobbing plumber. You go to a lot of people's houses, you meet a lot of different people, there's all kinds of walks of life out there. Some customers won't talk to you, won't even make you a drink, but other customers will talk to you. You'll have a lovely conversation with them, they'll make you tea. And the woman at this house was really nice, and this model engine room was on display in the lounge. Her husband wasn't there at the time, but she was explaining to me that he's made this all by himself from scratch. It's kind of a hobby, but he's done it all with one arm. So she was telling me he had a bike accident about 6 years ago where he lost one of his arms, his right hand, which he was right-handed, and he's done all this with one arm, his left hand, which isn't his strong hand, holding things in between his knees, holding paintbrushes in his teeth. And I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I kept looking at it. She let me take a video of it. It all works. You can put the coal in, light it. The engine starts creating steam. The whistle blows. The table saw goes. Yeah, I just wanted to share it with you. So I forgot to record this job for YouTube. It was only a basic combi swap. What I thought was worth mentioning to you guys is what I did was I finished this yesterday. Well, I didn't finish it. I did most of it yesterday, so I got the hot water working. The heating, I've still got to connect the wireless stat up and try one of these from near emitters. So I've not fitted one of them yet. So there's just the wiring left to do, the wireless stat. But I left the magnet cleanse on overnight. Now, a lot of people have said before that they won't do that because some of these connections are on like Jubilee clips, and if you're running this at like 75-80 degrees, these hoses get a little bit softer and maybe they could pop off at high pressure. But what I do is run it at about 50 degrees, 55 degrees. I've never had one pop off, so I'm not saying you can do it safely, but I've done it for the last 10 years and I've never had a problem. So that has been literally working while I've been asleep. I meant to get back here this morning to take this off and finish off, but it's now about 4:30. Just because my day's not gone right. So I've got to whip this off, put that filter back on, wire up the stat, a little bit of work to do on the flue. What I will say on this one, the pipe work before it wasn't the best. I've tidied it up a little bit, but you can see here I've put some press sockets on as it comes out the worktop. Now normally I would go under here and bring new copper through to make a better job of it, but the elbows and the pipes all run really tight along under here, so I didn't really have room to do it. And also, this is a letting agency job. The landlord didn't want to pay, he didn't really want to have a new boiler, but I talked him into it because the old one was giving him so much trouble. I mean, the old one, the filter was on the flow. It was an Ideal Logic, they had loads of trouble with it. The guy who fitted it didn't register the boiler, so they had no warranty on it. And it was just going wrong all the time. He just kept spending money after money on it. So, yeah, it's a cheap landlord combi swap really, but I've tried to make it, you know, I've put I've done my best with it anyway. So yeah, I'm just going to tidy the electrics up. When I've finished, I'll do another little video to show you what I've done. But yeah, Magna Cleanse. So this was a job I got given while I was there doing the boiler service and the fire service. He just said, can you have a quick look at the toilet? Because sometimes it fills up, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to give the float a wiggle to get the water to come through. And it's quite a common fault on certain systems with a fluid master valve in, because the float runs around the back of the valve. If it's not coming through dead straight, the float will rub on the side of the system, it will get caught. So what I'm doing here is I'm replacing it with a Viva float valve, the 4-in-1, because the float, you can see, is inside that little chamber, and even if that little chamber is touching the sides, the float can still move freely inside it. So it's a really good one. If you ever get a fluid master that's rubbing, one of these will go in great, and you can spin it, I think it goes 180, depending on where your siphon is, where your handle is, to keep it out of the way of that. I come across this quite a lot. I think it's down to the way that the systems are cast, but you'll find your float valve doesn't come up dead straight. So these Vivas are great for that situation. So one of the most popular sections from the last video I did was the section where I moaned. I had a little moan about letting agencies and when you go out to do a... So one of the most popular sections from last video was the bit where I moaned. People seem to relate to that. So I'll make it a regular feature, but I don't... Well, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll notice I moan a lot about little bits. But I'll try and keep it short because, you know, I want to spread a bit of positivity. But one of the things that everyone will relate to when you're a plumber or any tradesman is the fact that when a customer or a tenant rings up with an issue, to them, yeah, a loose toilet seat or one of their 3 toilets in the house not flushing, or the fact they've got no heating is the end of the world to them. What they don't understand is when they ring up a plumber, we can't go straight round. We're not sat in a lay-by, we're not sat at home waiting for the phone to ring so a job comes in. Some of you might be if you've got no work on, but the rest of us are fully booked, got too much work on anyway, struggling to get through it all. When someone rings up with an issue, they go to the back of the queue. We've already got a list of, you know, as long as our arm, of jobs we need to get to. And they don't seem to understand that. They think that we're going to go around straight away. And when you say that you can't go that day, they can't understand it. What do you mean you can't come today? And then what they try and do is they try and bump themselves up the queue. So they'll say, oh, we've got a newborn baby in the house, so we need the heating on, or we've got an elderly relative staying, or, you know, a member of the family's disabled. They'll try and say anything they can to bump themselves up the list, which I don't think is right. And a lot of the time it's a barefaced lie, because you'll get round there's no baby there, you know, their partner's not pregnant, there's no elderly relative staying, they've just said it to try and get you round. So that's just another, and you'll find that happens a lot. Don't agree with it. Sometimes you'll fall for it. You'll think, oh, okay, maybe I could squeeze that in on the way home because you've got a newborn baby, and when you get there you realise they've not. It's a bit of a piss take really. But yeah, customers need to understand that decent plumbers aren't sat waiting for a job to come in. They're working hard to get through their list, and although your heating not working is a big deal to you, they can't just come straight round. You're gonna have to wait. So yeah, that's just I think that's everyday life for tradesmen. But yeah, sometimes that can wind you up a bit. Wes, is it true you've dropped so many radiators, you're the reason Stelrad had to develop a touch-up pen?
Yeah.